Market forecasts. Everybody seems to love them, except for me. But there's a good reason for that. Over the past 20 years, I've spent a lot of time sitting at industry events, listening to somebody on stage telling me that the latest buzzword is going to generate billions or trillions of dollars of market opportunity in just a few years' time. And you start to get excited, but then you remind yourself that, well, I've heard it all before. Rarely do these headline-generating market forecasts ever live up to the hype. Thing is, I actually understand why we need market forecasts. If I'm a business, I need to know what the trends are, where I should be investing my R&D budget, how do I set my sales targets or revenue targets. But I also understand the downside of it. I understand how they're put together and how the projections are done, which means I think a lot of these things need to be scrutinized further. We take it for granted that the numbers must be correct, and that's probably not the best way to go about it. Over the past year, I've spent a lot of time looking at the market opportunity and forecasts for smart cities. And I'm going to share my findings with you. And I think what you're going to find out is you're going to end up with more questions than answers. So before we take a look at the smart city market forecast, we should probably take a look at the actual data first. I was able to find 7 different analyst firms that released data for 2018. And the good news is, the first one I looked at said the market was already worth $71 billion. And that's a huge market opportunity for tech vendors and startups to go after. Well, I thought it was. The next one said it's actually worth $900 billion. So nearly a 13-fold increase. And the other 5 come in between there. And this is the challenge we face. Because there's no set definition of what a smart city is, we're going to get these crazy numbers that are so much higher than the other one, which is fine for them because they're just trying to generate market headlines. But we need that data to run our businesses. So the challenge is, which one do you actually trust? And we're going to continue to have these problems because this actual data, which has that much of a variance, is what we use to create the market forecast. So what you're going to see now is how those crazy baseline data translates into crazy market forecasts. When we look at the smart city market forecasts, I've got some good news for you. No matter how big or small you think the smart cities market should be, we've got a forecast that will support your confirmation bias. If you're an optimist, I would go with Blue Wave Consulting. They think it's going to be worth $3 trillion in 2024. You're a pessimist? Oh, I'd go with IDC then, because they say it's only $190 billion in 2023. But the good news is, no matter the time horizon, and whether you're an optimist or a pessimist, there's going to be a number that will be able to match what you think it should be. And that's not a good thing. Unfortunately, I don't have the answer of how to solve this problem. But the thing is, I do have a few tips for you. Number 1, always question the hype. Someone's always going to come out with a new forecast saying that the latest widget or buzzword is going to have a valuation of X by some time. Just remember what you've learned today, that these numbers are all over the place and they're meant to generate headlines. Number 2, when you do have to engage with an analyst firm, question their methodology and ask them to explain to you which use cases are included and make sure that matches with what you need it to be. And for good measure, ask them why their forecast is so much higher or lower than somebody else. And the final one on this, I would say, if possible, ignore the numbers and look at the trends. What you should be able to identify from any of these is which use cases are going to emerge in the near term, medium term, or longer term. And that's what we really need to be focusing on to run our businesses. To close out, I'm going to give you a quote from an economist and the former head of the US Federal Reserve, Alan Greenspan, which accurately sums up my view of market forecasts. We really can't forecast all that well, and yet we pretend that we can. But we really can't.